There we are. Okay. We are live today, this morning, Sunday morning, on Connection with my friend Onna Johnson. I had the great pleasure of meeting her in person a few weeks ago, and it was so
Mhm.
fun. I wish we'd had all day, though.
Yeah.
Um, that would
Next
have been
time.
next time. Yes,
hmm
yes. And then I was hoping we would connect in Spokane, but next time we will. You got a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
going
going
on.
back. I'm going back to Spokane. So,
Good. You're about as busy as I am. Okay, my dear. So before we get going in, I just want to ask in your own words, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, how you got to this point, and then we're going to start talking about
mm.
the projects.
Okay, thank you. Well, um, my given name was Donna Mercer. I was born and raised in Montana. Of course, born and raised in the church, um, and grew up in Montana. Married quickly. I went to a couple of years of college and then married and had 5 children and eventually came to the place where I decided I needed to get some counseling. I was still in the church at the time, so I went in secret. And the book that I wrote pretty much tells the story from there on out.
So the book is Killing Baby Birds.
hmm
And I've interviewed you once before on Worthy, right after the book kind of came out. Talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about, for the people who haven't seen it, what the book is about, where they can get it. Oh, I just realized I forgot to post the link on Amazon. I'll add that to the comments.
Okay. We can do
Uh,
that. Yeah, later.
yeah, but go ahead. Tell us about what the book is all about, what it means to you, and what you want people to understand walking into today.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks, Crystal, for inviting me too. This is exciting. Um, and I just want to start out by reading just 3 of the numerous comments and feedback that I've received about the book Killing Baby Birds. The first one, it was a powerfully validating of many things I experienced myself. You are giving other people a voice. This person was born and raised. Um, Another person who has been in the church, there were parts that made me cry, parts that brought me up short, made me smile, made me angry, and parts that made me so proud of you, even though we haven't met. And then another one, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. God has given me tools for my healing journey, and this is one of them. These are just excerpts from a few of the feedbacks, many feedbacks I've gotten. And then one more comment, or maybe you'd say it was a question I got about the sexual abuse that I talk about in the book. Was it really that bad? And my answer is this: yes. The magnitude of the abuse doesn't always determine the harm done to the individual. We've heard about that in previous shows. And how it then can affect even other people who are in your lives as you deal with the trauma. Pretending it didn't happen, or pretending it wasn't really bad, keeping it quiet, staying silent doesn't keep abuse from harming your nervous system and your soul. And so, um, more about the book. A person who has never been in the church or never even knew about it until she became my neighbor and quickly became interested, and I gave her a copy. She said, I've read many memoirs, and the craft of your book is unlike any I have ever seen. Using your writing to your therapist makes the book unique and authentic. And to clarify that, for those who haven't read, I dedicated the book to my counselor, Carolyn Galinkin. And I talk about her throughout the book, including many letters that I wrote to her to help me during counseling. I knew that she had passed away more than 10 years previous to when I published the book, and I knew that she had at least 6 children. Since last summer when I published, I found 2 of her daughters and talked to both of them and given them a copy of the book that is dedicated to their mother. The day that I met her daughter Lillian, we realized as we were talking that that day was the anniversary of her mother's passing. I had met her mother a week or two, or visited her mother a week or two here in Portland before she passed away. And I think if you've read the book, you'll understand why meeting them is so validating and means so much to me. She's an important part of this book. And so in the write-up, Crystal, you wrote that we'll be talking about the meaning of killing baby birds and the story behind it. When I finally published, I really hoped that this book would help and touch other survivors and be of some help in some way. There's an early chapter that tells why I determined to use my real name. I hadn't intended to use my real name. But when this Facebook page was started, the Worthy of the World, I think, Facebook page was started. No, it was this page. I asked Crystal about this Facebook page being public, and I eventually agreed with you, Crystal. Secrecy is part of the whole problem that is going on today.
Yes.
And so in this book I tell about my own experience of questioning not only the church I was raised in, but studying all types of Christianity, about God, about atheism. And I feel it's really important to understand that we're all on different and various stages of our journey, and our experiences have been different. And as Crystal often emphasizes, it's all about love. Do you want to add to that, Crystal, before?
No, you just summed it up. It's all about love. I mean,
It's all about love.
yeah, I don't care
It
where
doesn't
anybody is in their
matter.
journey. Yeah, it doesn't matter where they are in their journey. As long
And
as
who you
we're
believe
talking
in, or
about
what
love.
you believe in,
Yes.
or what you practice. So,
Yes.
so in preparation for this show, I went back and read Killing Baby Birds to try to better identify what Crystal terms as emotional and psychological impact of high control environments. Physical and sexual abuse seem obvious, of course. To me, they do anyhow. That's a lot what the book is about. But if you were raised in this way, religious and emotional abuse also plays a large part to maintain order and control of this group. At least most of us women would have experienced the control that we all know about. Outward appearance, dress, hair, no jewelry, no. We were expected to look different, to be set apart, and even the idea that maybe you shouldn't attend college was broached to me when I was going to graduate from high school, because it might be a bad influence on me, particularly as a woman. And my place was in the home and in the work. And all of this religious manipulation can be harmful. And the more I go back and read, the more I realize how harmful that really is. And above all, don't ever talk about anything negative that's going on in the church, particularly to those on the outside, for fear of giving the church a bad name, even if it's criminal behavior. So in this book, I also write about physical abuse, spankings or beatings that I witnessed and experienced as a form of discipline. And I used that form of discipline with my own children while I was still in the church. It was certainly condoned and expected by the workers and friends. And of course, the book reveals sexual abuse that I experienced, which was the best kept secret of all. Now, this is about my own personal experience of being raised in this church and the process of many years of learning and healing and forgiving. I was talking to one woman recently, and she was raised in the same state I was raised in. And I was really surprised that the rules were very different for her, even from the same state while she was growing up. And I visited recently with another woman and found that the rules were so much more extreme than I experienced and write about in the book. And I just know that every story is important and deserves to be told. At the end of this book, there's an entire chapter about how I was able to extend forgiveness to the perpetrator of my sexual abuse. At the end of the chapter, I concluded with a long letter to my then deceased offender about a visit that I made back to the farm area where we were raised, and then to the grave site where he was buried. And I just want to give you a little idea. I'll read a few lines of that letter that I wrote. To my cousin Ben, I look at your grave and I felt an overwhelming emotion. It was sorrow for you rather than against you. I felt no animosity, no grievance, no malice. I felt sorry for you and your family. I pray that you are now in a better place. The entire chapter helps to understand the journey to forgiveness, and not only forgiveness to others or from others, but the importance of forgiving ourselves when we realize that we may have caused harm or that we have caused harm, and being able to successfully move on from that in our lives. So that's the first book.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah. So for anybody out there that doesn't know you or hasn't read your story, I know that your journey has been decades long of getting to the place that you are now. And one of the things that I have really observed, particularly in the last couple of months, is that for those of us who have been out a lot longer and have been further down the journey, I feel like there's a little bit of a comparison there where people feel like they're behind, or they just can hardly imagine how they're going to get from where they are right now to where maybe we are. And I just want to honor everybody wherever they are today in that journey, because I just want to honor you. I know what it took for you to be sitting here today. And what you had to face and walk through on your own. You had to seek that out. And I really want to honor anybody that's in this process that is trying to heal, because it's not easy. It is not easy at all. So, so you wrote that book. You have it's a great book. I'm excited to hear about your next project. Talk to us for a second about the moment that you realized that your first book wasn't enough and that you had more to say, because what you really wanted to do was to hear what others had to say. Tell us about that.
Yes. Okay, well, first of all, Crystal, last week when you posted for this show on Facebook, you said, because healing doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we finally start telling the truth out loud. That really hit me. That really struck me. Telling the truth out loud. So that line is now on the short list of possibly a title for this second book that I'm writing. And telling the truth out loud. And this is how I decided I was going to write this book and put it together. In Killing Baby Birds, chapter 17, it introduces a book that my counselor gave me after I'd been in counseling for some time. It had been, I'm sure, at least more than a year or even 2. And she felt I could handle the stories in this book by that time, with her help. The book has accounts from more than 30 women who had experienced child sexual abuse during their lives. and there was a wide variety of experiences and responses to the abuse that these women had experienced. The perpetrators were relatives, fathers, friends, acquaintances, strangers, and it wasn't an easy read, but it had a powerful way of helping me to understand why victims most often don't tell anyone, and why I didn't tell my story until I was years into my adulthood. And it also helped me to understand clearly that there were no shared desires or no partnership in an abusive encounter of any magnitude. No shared desires, no partnership in an abusive encounter, no matter the magnitude of the encounter. There's a victim and there's a perpetrator. And that just seemed to be a come to reality moment for me. To be able to read some of those stories and get a better understanding that others have experienced this. So that was the purpose of writing the story.
So you are gathering stories, survivor stories, from people that have been inside the 2x2 church from all
Yes.
over the place.
Yes.
And you're interviewing them, and you're in the process of writing a book about their experiences of surviving sexual abuse and how they have processed through that, where they're at now.
Yes.
That is going to be an incredible story. I've interviewed two people for myself for this show, and guys, I wanted to start something called Survivor Series, and for people to even visually, go through it. For both of them, it's been very powerful to just record that with me. Those are both recorded that I've done so far. And I wanted to have a track on domestic violence and also a track on incest. But what I have very quickly discovered also is, like reading that book, I don't know if there's enough trigger warnings in the world yet to be able to put those out, because they are brutally raw and the emotion is so intense. And just the couple that I've interviewed so far for myself for these, I just went, we need to, it's too triggering for me. I am a survivor as well, as you know. And I've had years and years and years of therapy. But it's a lot to process through them. So I want to give you huge kudos for your ability to sit and listen to the stories, because for myself, I have found that it's very, very triggering. And when I had a conversation with Natalie and Cynthia even about whether we should put them out or not yet, it was like, well, Gary Myers had just died and it was his funeral, and we had just gone to war, and it was like all these other things, and it was like, we're just going to hold off on that for a little bit, because it's a lot to deal with emotionally. So I want to talk for a second about how the truth sets us free and why shame unravels connection, because I want to hear from your perspective how powerful that truly is, because it's incredible what happens to us when we verbalize what has been spinning in our heads for decades of what we know to be true. Talk for a second about how that felt for you.
It was a process. It was a long process. I was in counseling in secret for a long time, and even telling my counselor. And I was fortunate because she didn't encourage me. Her goal was to even to get me healthy and be able to participate in the church, even though she knew that. But it felt so liberating when I was able to finally talk about it and become clear about it, that it wasn't. I think one of the problems is that people blaming yourself or it
Yes.
wasn't even that question that was asked of me, was it really so bad?
Yes.
Um, and I was able, without hesitating, yes, it was really so bad. How it affected me was really so bad. How it affected my family,
Right.
my dealing with my family, and my first husband, how it affected him,
Yep.
and those around me. So
Yeah.
when you finally get it out there, and it was intimidating to write the first book in some ways using my own name, but the more I wrote and the more I realized I was going to use my own name, I felt really liberated.
Yep.
It it shouldn't be a secret, because
No.
like you say, secrets don't heal.
No.
Silence doesn't heal.
No.
And being able to speak about it is liberating in a way, and but it's intimidating also.
Oh.
You
There's so
know.
much fear and shame around it. Melanie's saying she's been wanting to discuss grooming in all of the aspects of the lifelong sentence. It is a lifelong sentence, even for
Yes.
those of us who have moved through and to the place of forgiveness or not, whatever, however you
Right.
are on that. It is something, it is a scar that we carry that I feel like is like across my forehead sometimes
Hmm.
because I feel like I can only use myself as an example of I'm just textbook. I mean, I just if somebody I have come so I'm so clear and I have such zero tolerance now for that level of
Hmm.
manipulation or if I feel it coming on or like any kind of game, I am like a bull in a china shop, man. I have and I also realize that not everybody is as strong and bold. Like I was born that way, but
Hmm.
it's very hard to find your voice. Um, it's very very hard, I think, to find your voice. Melanie's saying yes, it was so bad, and did you somehow encourage it? Two devastating thoughts and comments, and yes, and I that's one of the reasons I want to keep having this conversation in this group about this church because for everything that's come out and for all of us who have told our stories and for all of us who have are victims of it, thousands, they still
Yes.
don't get it.
Hmm.
Still don't get it. Still don't understand. They're still saying, was it that bad? They're still not understanding the ripple effect. Don Warnick is saying, I could not even speak out loud in therapy for years. I
Hmm.
wrote, and my therapist would read it. It was such delicate, broken glass treading. That's a,
I had the
oh,
same experience. Right.
yes, yes. Um, and then Melanie saying, I always wonder if a man is nice to me or if it's because I'm encouraging grooming. Yes, I mean, I
Yes.
think that the
Hmm.
tapes that go on in our heads, partly because, I look back at pictures of myself when I was 15 years old with my dresses up to here and down my sleeves down, and it's like, and I was so vulnerable and I was so in need of love. Like, if I did do something to bring it on, none of that was my fault either. Like,
Hmm.
it's the ignorance of people around this issue, especially in this church, is mind numbing to me.
Hmm.
I don't understand how, and we've had so many shows on how a perpetrator's mind works and
Hmm.
how they don't recover and how they groom and all of the things that go into it. And they just go on like business as usual, like, oh, that happened a long time ago and we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yep.
Which, I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that. But learning to trust ourselves again, like what Melanie just said,
Hmm.
am I doing something? Like learning to trust ourselves in a way that's like, I know I'm not bringing it on. But yeah,
Right.
for a long time, it's like, if I look nice, if I dress nice, if my shirt is unbuttoned one extra button,
Yep. A
or
little
I
bit.
have too much skin showing, it's like in my head that I'm trying to bring attention to myself, or I'm trying to get somebody to that I'm the one being manipulative
Hmm.
or grooming. I mean, it is just a sick, sick way of thinking.
But
Um,
that's what we were taught.
that's what we
That's
were.
what you are responsible for their behavior.
Yes,
And and you'll go to hell if you cause
Yeah.
them to
Yes.
misbehave.
Yes. And the level of incest that has occurred in
Mm-hmm.
this church is, if you look at the numbers rampantly compared to randomly,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's it's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Fran Christensen is saying, "Oh, Anna, Donna, it was she's 65 years together. We were at
Mm-hmm.
convention. Thank you for telling your story. It is tearful in hearing this, and trusting ourselves is huge." Carrie Boyer is saying, "I feel like some of my abuse that they went through as adult marriages was because I was got so groomed into the religion."
Yes.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
yes. We fall into a pattern. My husband has been binge watching that new show that just came out on Netflix. Have you seen it, The False Pastor?
No, I
The
haven't.
false, the false prophet.
The false
False
prophet.
prophet.
Okay.
It is an LDS. I can't. If I just walk into the room, it's triggering for me. I.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable though the parallels between the two. It's just
Mm-hmm. Yes.
unbelievable what what it does to our minds
Mm-hmm.
and to my body. Like I can just feel myself
You
clenching.
feel
I
it.
feel,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can feel it in your body.
Oh, my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's intense. So what would you say to somebody in your experience that knows something's not right? How what tools do you use? How do you counsel people, or do people come to you? I have a lot of people who come to me. I'm wondering if people come to you and say this happened, or I don't feel right about this.
Right. Well, when we first talked about this book, we thought that the stories would just come to me, because there's so many stories, thousands of stories that are written, some of them, a lot of them out
Right.
there. But what I have found is that people really want to tell me the story and then have me write it. People don't feel
Yes.
real comfortable with even sharing their writing or doing the writing. Um, and so I recently took the advocate training class, and that was offered by Pathways to Healing, considering being potentially an advocate. But during the class, I realized that the class was also necessary for me doing the work of writing this second book, because I would be meeting people that, well, for one thing, it was a perfect refresher about confidentiality, the absolute necessity of confidentiality, which, and having been a special ed teacher and administrator, that was pounded into me, but I needed
Yes.
a refresher just to be sure that. And then also, when I find myself visiting with people or interviewing people who have experienced this trauma, this has better equipped me, I have found, um, to be able to listen and to just have more healthy encounters. And I've gone back to my notebook that I kept with the advocacy between talking to people to remind myself of how to interview them and how to protect myself from being re-traumatized or triggered. And that course. Thank you to Pathways to Healing. That course has been really helpful. And it's not been long. It's just been the last few weeks that I've finished it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
listening to people's stories, I'm mostly able to just protect myself and understand.
Hmm.
Um, and it's necessary to have the tools to be able to say, and I've used them, here's a number to call. I
Yes.
encourage you to call Pathways to Healing. I've never come across so far anyone that we needed to go any further than that, but that's been so helpful for
Yes.
me.
Yes. And I feel like every time we talk about pathways to healing, there's still people out there that don't even understand what they do or is
Hmm.
uninformed.
Yes.
And so I want to keep having that conversation. In fact, Natalie's going to
Yes.
be on again in just a couple of weeks because um, she also last weekend she was in Boston. She went to Harvard to the School of Divinity at Harvard and met with world leaders about sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, all kinds of things around what we're talking about here today, which is just incredible. So yes, and then I also, the language, I'm trying to also be very aware that we talk about things trauma informed. We use a language that maybe the ordinary person, especially if they haven't been in therapy, doesn't know what that means. So when we
Hmm.
talk about consent and we're talking about confidentiality, and again, sometimes people reach out to me on behalf of someone else, like somebody reached
Sure.
out to them, and then they're like, I really am concerned for her. Um, Again, it's confidentiality of just getting that to the right place, making sure that they're getting the help that they need. And I think because of the two by twos, we all were so gossipy. Like everybody thinks it's
Yes,
everybody's
that's
business,
true.
you know? And I'm like,
Absolutely.
okay, so then people get a little bit hurt feelings sometimes because it's like, I cannot discuss this with you.
Hmm.
And I will not discuss this with you. And not because I'm being rude or mean. It's just confidentiality is so important here.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, it really does matter, especially when we're talking about these things. So
And
um,
I've had people, want they think they know, and I will just say I can't talk about that. I
I,
can't. That's a part of
not my
confidentiality. Use that
yes,
word. I
yes,
have to be really careful with that. I tell them confidentiality, and
totally, I
I
agree.
keep
Dana's saying
reminding
that
myself.
confidentiality versus keeping silent, there's a very huge difference, yet very misunderstood. I agree with that, Dana. Confidentiality and keeping silent. Confidentiality means we're going to get you the help that you need if you need
Right.
it, or you've confided in us, and uh, but staying silent, it's like, oh, you poor thing,
Hmm.
and you don't do anything about it. There's a really big difference there.
Right.
Um, Carrie
And
says,
I'm
I have
going.
never heard of them and would love more information. Okay, we will post that in the link, or if somebody out there could post the connection to Pathways to Healing specifically to their website, because there's a way to contact them. There are advocates available. If anybody out there is suffering, they are the
Mhm.
avenue that pays for therapy for people who have been abused through the 2 by 2 church. They help you find a therapist, they work with your insurance. Um, and they have all kinds of tools available for people. They do the advocacy training, and they're just now coming out with. We'll be starting it here very soon. I will be one of the people that they're training on healing circles. So we're going to start having healing circle groups where we are. So I will be a leader of that, and there's going to be 20 of us going through a very extensive training program so that we can start doing some of that, because I think one of the things so many of us miss is belonging and being
Mhm.
a part of something. So this will be a way to kind of form smaller groups for people that they can get support from on a regular basis. So Carrie, if nobody's posted that, it just is wild to me that people don't know that that exists.
Pathways to healing.
Melanie's Yeah, Melanie's saying, I've tried so many times to write my story for Shree Crop and I just can't get it done. I start, but I can't seem to put it all down. I need to hear more about this Pathways to Healing. Okay, well, um, Natalie will be on and I will be posting it out. Pathways to Healing is incredible. But I have also found the same thing. We're both writing books. I'm writing the one
Mhm.
about the Baldwin babies right now. And I have experienced that exact same thing, uh, that people want to say their story out loud to me and have
Mhm.
me write it for them. Very few people are wanting to write it down. So I just want to be very clear about how Pathways got started also. So in the very beginning, when this Brewergate thing happened in March of 2023, there was a group that formed, and it was Natalie, or it was originally Sherry, Lauren, and Cynthia. So they were doing the crisis line, and then Natalie Bolin, Dr. Natalie Bolin, was still professing, and she became the executive director of Advocates for Abuse, or I'm AFTT at the time.
Mhm.
It was AFTT, Advocates for
Mhm.
Advocates for the Truth. Um, So Natalie was the executive director, and she was still professing, and then in that process ended up leaving meetings and stuff also. So then when that broke apart, she formed her Pathways to Healing. So it's a 501c3, and that's the therapy advocacy team that she runs, and that is run by Dr. Natalie Bolin. And then the 2x2 accountability team is Cynthia Lyles and her whole group of people that are with her. So that's a separate 501c3. And then that is, the therapy is funded by Bridges and Balm, which is with Steve Padden. So I think we should maybe do a diagram of how all that works out. But
Yes, that would be a good idea.
yeah, so that people also know who to reach out to for what. But also,
Yeah.
we're going to be starting to do some fundraising here pretty soon. And I know that Cynthia is going to be coming out with, her website will be live here pretty soon as well. So for 2x2 accountability, church accountability. So,
Good.
but Carrie's saying, I wrote a story and accidentally left it at my parents, and they did not like the part. I'm not sure what that's saying about faith and how I was raised. Yeah. Melanie says, sharing my interview with Whitney has left me feeling very exposed and like I lived a different life. And who is that young girl? It's so strange. Yeah, I bet. So if you guys haven't watched Melanie's, have you watched Melanie's interview? She gave a baby up for adoption through Dr. Baldwin, and she was interviewed recently. I had interviewed her originally on Worthy of the World, and then Whitney interviewed her on CCF. So
I haven't watched it.
got it.
Where
Dana's,
is it?
it's on CCF. I'll post it to, if
Okay.
it's not on Survivor Rights, I will make sure that it gets posted there. But Dana's saying she wants to be in the healing group with me. Yes. So we'll talk about that in just a little second. So many wonderful things available, and a diagram would be helpful. Yes. Okay. So, okay, we will work on that as a team of just making sure that everybody knows who's who. So talk for a second. What else do you have on your notes? Because otherwise I have a couple other questions I wanted to talk with you about.
Well, before it's over, I was hoping to possibly share just a few excerpts from a few of the stories that we're presently working on.
Yeah.
But I do want to say trigger warning, because some of them are raw, some of them
Okay.
are pretty raw. And I'm just a few, but I wanted to give you an idea of what this book is really. If I read, I finally told someone. That was the book that my counselor had me read after I'd been in counseling for so long. And it's kind of patterned after that. But I'll just read a few of the, just short excerpts from some of the stories and poems and
Okay.
writings.
Just a trigger warning out there. If you're not in a
Yeah.
place of listening to anything that is CSA or SA related, or you need some support, you might want to step away or
Right.
watch at a later time, or have someone watch with you.
Or if you are triggered, yes, call Pathways
Yes.
to Healing. We got to have that
Yes.
posted for sure,
Yes.
and let people know. And anyhow, a quote from one story. I went through the book to talk to kind of identify, this is spiritual and religious abuse, and this is physical abuse, and this is sexual abuse. And so one quote from a story of spiritual emotional abuse: I was convinced by the purity culture of the church that I needed to marry a man who had date raped me, because once you had sex, you're already married in the eyes of God. And then I'll quote a line from a story about a memory of physical abuse. This is just a little sentence out of this story. At age 6, when my little 4-year-old sister was ordered by our dad to get the strap and bring it to him because we were making noise when he was trying to sleep. That's physical abuse.
Yes.
And another woman tells about religious coercion as a child. When Lee was age 9, she stood up in a convention meeting that was tested while hundreds of people slowly sang the words of a hymn. Words that were designed to strike fear into her little heart. Words that implored her to stand to her feet before it was too late. From a story of sexual abuse. When I was 9 or 10, an adult in the church started sexually molesting me. This went on for years during my adolescence, and one day when I was an adult, I learned to my horror that my sister was being molested by the same man. We were both astonished. Neither of us had any inkling that the other was a victim of the same perpetrator. And there's just one line, just a few lines from a poem that is being worked on. I betrayed him. I told someone. Now I feel awful. He trusted me. And then this poem ends, but I can't kill myself because I don't want to go to hell. So my intention is to just give a little cross-section of what this book is about, and maybe give some ideas of telling a little of your own truth out loud. And they're short, they're not extensive. We're not going to write whole life stories, but because Crystal wrote in the introduction to this show, healing doesn't happen in silence. It doesn't. It would never have happened for me had I not, in secret, been able to find the best counselor in the world, I think, for this particular situation. And when you were talking, I feel like pathways to healing is so important because they're connected to what you were raised in. Later in life, I've, for different reasons, found a counselor to deal with some situations, not necessarily related to the church, but maybe as a result of some of my upbringing. And they don't get it about the church. It's different. It's different than being raised Mormon or any other religious culture. So Pathways to Healing to me is so valuable because the counselors are knowledgeable about every aspect of the church that we were raised in.
Yes. And they do also have some tools available for people. Like you can take, if you are starting with a new therapist, they have like some language that you can take to your therapist. If they're not if they are not aware of the 2x2s. We had a show a while ago. Natalie was on with one of the therapists that works with people in the California area. So we want to have her on again. But it was so telling to hear her response as an outsider, but as a therapist to several different people within the 2x2 church, what her observations were. So if you haven't watched that, you might want to go out on YouTube and watch that show. She was, it's a therapist, I can't remember what her name was now, but she's Hispanic. But anyway, wild. But I also want to say, for some reason, I'm having a very strong feeling that we also need to mention that any men that are out here watching this today, if you're watching it today or you're watching it later, I just want to be very, very clear that men also have the same need of having understanding, and they have also experienced some abuse and are recovering from that, whether it was sexual abuse or not. Absolutely. There's a lot for men to recover from as well. And so that piece, I just want to make sure that guys that are out there heard about that. Carrie, I'm going to send you the link to the YouTube channel that all of these shows get posted on. It's Life Spark Confidence, and it's on YouTube. I'll post the link, but if you click on any of the ones where I say, here's the shareable YouTube link, I post them after every show, Carrie. It'll take you to that page, and if you look back, it's Dr. Natalie Bolin, and a therapist, and myself, and it says that in the subject of the show. So feel free to go back and take a look at those. But it's unfortunate that we're 3 years in and still having so many conversations like this. that I don't know if I have really also. I want your opinion on this. I think it's hard to take information in when people are so hurting. I think that this whole
Hmm.
thing has been so overwhelming for so many people that it has come to my awareness in the last couple of months, especially, that we're going to have to just repeat things so many times because they maybe heard it 5 times, but they weren't ready to take it in. They weren't ready to receive the information yet.
Hmm.
And
They
so,
will say, I don't want to, I don't want to hear it. I
yes,
don't know much about it, and I don't want to know much about it. It's too much for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah, I totally, totally agree. Um, yes, Fran saying that was a powerful story with the three of you. So yeah, okay. Some of the questions that I had for you, I look at you now, like I see you walk in, and you're a little person. Uh, you're small in stature, but you are a powerhouse, Anna.
Hmm, thank
When
you.
I watched you walk into the restaurant, because I could see you walking in, and I was just like, I knew it was you before I even saw your face, because you walk with confidence and boldness. And I want
Hmm.
for people to know what it took for you to get to where you are now, and I also want people to have hope that healing is so possible.
Hmm.
So I want to hear your story about that. I know what freedom looks like for you now,
Hmm.
but looking at you today, no one would ever guess that what you've gone through in your life.
I just talked to a cousin yesterday that read my book who wasn't raised in the church. He was exposed to it through, gatherings, family reunions, and things like that. And he expressed the very same thing. But one of the things that was that, when I was younger, I'm an extreme extrovert, I think. I, that's what I
I
call
think
myself. And haven't always felt totally comfortable being that way, but so curious. And it really, for some reason, didn't even bother me to. I took my mother back to convention and was so comfortable, and I wanted to stay for dinner, and but I was with somebody else, and they were absolutely not. They didn't even want to be there.
right.
So I think it has helped me to have a different personality, but um, just all the years of making choices because I was told that was the choice I needed to make, and um, getting answers that I didn't even know the question to really.
Right.
Um, Trying to fit in as a professing mother and professing wife, and telling me, we struggled with money, but I was told I couldn't work. So I went back to try to take some college courses, secretarial kind of courses, after my children were in school, and I really wasn't. And the workers came to me and told me I should not be doing that. My place was in the home as a mother.
Yeah.
And my husband at that time had been very sick, and if something had happened to him, I was stuck with 5 kids with no income. That's how I felt.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anyhow, but then, and the counseling, I was fortunate. I found the right counselor. Um, the counseling, and I stuck with it. It's so easy to go to counseling. Well, for one thing, it's difficult to find the right counselor. That's the
Yes.
first thing. But it's so easy. Even with Carolyn, I thought many times about not going back because it was hard. It was so hard, and it was intimidating, and it was, am I really doing the right thing? Because of the church,
Right.
because of what I was trained in the
Yes.
church. Maybe this isn't right. Maybe I'm going to go to hell if I continue this going to counseling. So it was a long process,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the process, or I could have stayed, and I could still be in the church and professing, but I wouldn't be happy. And I feel like looking back and evaluating things, even though sometimes it was very difficult for my family, and hard, and harmful in some ways, because I was struggling. That's where I was at. I couldn't help it. I couldn't
Right.
um, just stick to it if you can.
Right.
And and one of the things recently that just came to me so clearly is become check things. Don't not want to hear things.
Mm.
Listen to log on and see what's happening, and because you can kind of be in your own little box, your own little
Here.
world, and that's not healing. And there was something recently too that came up, this spiritual bypass as a defense mechanism that I've heard. God, we don't have to worry about that. God will take care of it.
Right.
And just enmeshing yourself so much in what you feel like is spirituality that you don't recognize that physical healing even um, is necessary. Um,
I think
the
that's very
process
true.
of grooming too. The process of grooming isn't. I was glad you brought that up because, and the process of healthy grieving the loss of. In a way, I lost my first husband over it, um, and I'm not totally in agreement with all of my children at this time because I shouldn't say total agreement, but um, I can see that there are things that are not. You just have to love them and
Yeah.
they love you back and don't talk about this stuff, really.
Right. And I think that that's one of the hard things. I get a lot of criticism, as you can imagine, and I'm sure you do too, for speaking out the way that I do and for giving this
Hmm.
platform a voice. And so many people think that it is just a direct hit to the church or that I'm purposely doing this. I
Yes.
don't at this point
Hmm.
care what the church does. They can do whatever they want to go do. Here's my point. This is what survivor rights exists for
Hmm.
people to be able to speak their voice, to have a platform that they can come and learn about things, that they can speak clearly about what happened to them.
Right.
The truth, if what story is their truth is unpleasant about the church, that's on the church. That's not on me. I'm not
Hmm.
just out here, I want to badmouth the church. That is not the case at all. And I don't even feel defensive about that anymore. At this point in my life, I know that God is working through me, through
Hmm.
so many of us, to bring healing and love to people in a way that they can truly feel it, and that will change their lives in a
Hmm.
way that they can feel like safe in order to uh, heal and to find a way to move forward. So,
Right.
um, yeah, there's just so much about that there are days that I do want to take down the church, but most of the days I'm like, do whatever you want to do. I've got bigger more things to worry about.
Right.
And I think most of us that are doing this work are at that point in our lives of just. But at the same time, I have to be reminded, and I try to remind myself regularly how many people. And actually, Dana, you said something earlier. I caught it, but I didn't read the whole thing about one of the. Yes, it has been 3 years, but that was the beginning, just the beginning
Hmm.
for so many people. And even then, if we say, oh, we have the 3 year mark, some people are still just leaving. There's people who are now, I believe there is a little bit of a wave coming of people who are getting
Hmm.
ready to leave or that have been hanging on for whatever reason. So I just love the fact that you also said, be curious.
Hmm.
Like, if discernment is such a gift, if to be able to take in information and to say that resonates with me or it doesn't. And we're not
Hmm.
trying to tell anybody how to live their life. We're just saying, um, here are here's a way forward, here's another way forward, here's a
Hmm.
different way forward. you know what works for you. But what at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is for people to take their power back and to make a choice
Hmm.
for themselves to say, this is how I want to live, and this is why I'm living it, not because somebody told me to, or because the consequences and the guardrails are so strict that I must stay within it in order
Right.
to, and I will stay small to do that.
And something that was brought to my attention recently is that there are some people, if they leave, it upends a lot of other people.
Yes.
A lot of other people are affected by one person or one couple or one
Yes.
family leaving. That may be the end of the meeting, and there aren't a lot left in some places to even have a meeting or to have Bible study, or they have people coming that are young and still very enmeshed in the church and really believe. And so it does affect other people often
Yeah.
when you leave the church, not just yourself.
Yeah.
And I understand that. That's you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they're honest, good people.
Right. Right. I agree. So you mentioned purity culture in one of your statements. Next Sunday, our Shauna Schmidt is going to be on. She does the purity culture shows through CCF. So for anybody that's out there, we're going to be talking about purity culture next week and what the impact is on the mentality of us growing up for men
Mm-hmm.
and for women, because it is a culture that is, wow, it will keep you small. Uh,
That's a
it
good
will.
way of putting it. It'll keep you small.
It'll
That's,
keep you small,
and
and it'll
that,
keep you
that
compliant.
that's
That's
not
okay.
humble. That's different than humble. It's small.
They think it's humble, but
Yes,
it's small.
right.
It's yes. It's such a interesting. I don't even know. Um,
That's
Damon's also
part of the
saying going to meetings.
disillusion.
It is an illusion. Yes. I don't disagree with, but I can now hear and weigh things whether what is said is rightfully spoken or tweaked by lack of understanding. Yes, I think that's one of the greatest gifts. I do know that there's a lot of people that are still in meeting who are listening with a different ear. It is a discernment ear. They're not just
Hmm.
drinking the Kool-Aid, for no other reason. We are almost out of time, which again, I don't even know how that happens. Um, so I'm going to give you last word. So I want you to know about that. Fran saying purity culture has been an eye opener and I've learned so much. Yes, I think next Sunday is going to be
Hmm.
an eye opener too.
It
For
is.
a lot of people, if you haven't been watching any of those purity culture shows or don't know anything about purity culture, again, it's a word that on the inside people don't even know what that even means.
Hmm.
Um, but my last question that I would ask for you, and then I'm going to give you final word, is how did writing your first book and now as you're getting writing the second book, how has that changed you? Or has it?
That is an interesting question. Well, in writing my own book, of course, it was my own story. And I could judge for myself, do I want to say that or do I? Now, collecting stories from other people, it's their story. And how it's working is you know, I listen and then I will help them write or write up a short story. But they have the last word. They know what they're comfortable with and they know what's really right for them. But I think writing the first book, I found, and had a good editor. I found a publisher that helped me publish and make the book more, more readable
Right.
and more friendly. And so writing the first book gave me experience in that, and my publisher is really anxious to publish the next book and did the format. And then my granddaughter Willow Peterson did the illustrations in the book, and she's really interested in doing illustrations for this next book. If so, those tools are already there, so that really helps. And I have a husband that's so he lets me be who I am, and he knows this is important to me, and he has things that he loves, and he's not here now. But because he's down in Arizona golfing, and he's okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm up here working on what I'm really interested in, and he's really that it would be very difficult if he weren't so easygoing about it. And this is what you want, and this is what I'm happy if you're happy.
Yep, we're both very lucky in that area.
Right. Right.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. And he can
So,
see, like in my case, my husband, he gets frustrated when I'm frustrated sometimes, but he knows that he just loves me for me. He doesn't
right.
expect me to be someone I'm not. So,
That's what's
um,
important. And he can see, well, for my husband to read that book, because he had no idea. We hadn't talked a whole lot about it. My husband doesn't share a lot, and I try not to share too much with him because, he's sensitive. And reading, it took him a while to read the book. We didn't talk much about it when I was writing the first book. Um, but I think it gave him an understanding of why I am who I am, and about my past and some of the things that he couldn't understand before.
yeah,
So,
yeah, I think we're pretty textbook as far as why we do what we do. If you look
right,
up in a psychology book, oh, that happened to her, and this is why she's behaving that way. Got it.
right, right.
It's not brain surgery there. Okay, my friend, last word goes to you. I want to
Well,
thank you
I
for
just
being here.
okay. Well, thank you, Crystal, for inviting me, and I just want to stay. If you're interested to tell a little of your own truth out loud in this book, you can. I suppose we should put an email in the.
Yep, we'll do that.
It's okay.
We'll do
In
that as
the
soon as
the email is. I'm trying to keep separate emails so I can keep things. The
yes.
email for this one is I finally told someone at gmail.com. I finally told someone at gmail.com. And just the last word, what Crystal said, healing doesn't happen in silence. And I promise, if you do share a story with me, I will be confidential. And you can write anonymously. So far, I have all anonymous stories. No one really wants to necessarily put their name to it, but if they want to, that's another process. They can. So,
Got it. All right, my dear. Well, thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you for helping other people heal. There's so much to all of it. And honestly, we say this all the time, but it definitely takes a village.
it
And
does.
actually an army at this point. It's taken an army. Um,
And if
so
this army wasn't out there, what would people do?
I don't
What would
know.
their resources? And it's just so important, the resources that
It
people
is.
can
Yes.
use.
Yes. So we're going to work on that diagram and also make sure that Pathways to Healing information is out there. Also, your email and a link to the book, the Amazon link, so that people can
Okay.
purchase Killing Baby Birds. So I'll make sure that that all gets out there as soon as we hang up here. So have an amazing day, everybody. Happy Sunday. Thank you for sharing your heart and soul. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for encouraging me so often in my life on a daily basis. I always appreciate hearing from you and seeing you. And anytime I see your name, I know I'm going to smile. So I
Thank you.
love that. Thank you for being that person. All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.